I'm Jody Huckaby. I'm the National Executive Director of PFLAG. As someone who identifies as gay, my coming out process many years ago did not involve PFLAG. It was not a very supportive one. And so I certainly knew the challenges personally that exist when there is not support from parents and family members and when there is rejection. And so that was it's always been an underlying motivator for me to, I think, find my way to PFLAG. I've been running nonprofit organizations now for over 20 years. And it's wonderful to see the city of Pittsburgh with the mayor's leadership, the leadership of the school systems, with parents, families, advocates, teachers, and administrators coming together to address the challenging issues of bullying and harassment in the schools, primarily the bullying and harassment of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender and questioning youth.
Today we have with us the Executive Director of PFLAG National, the parent organization of which PFLAG Pittsburgh is an affiliate. Jody Huckaby has been the Executive Director of PFLAG since 2005, and for over 20 years Jody has worked as a nonprofit leader in such organizations as the Washington, D.C. Humane Society, New Mexico AIDS Services, and the Bering Omega Community Foundation in Houston. Jody served as a board member of AIDS Action in Washington, D.C., and in that capacity facilitated LGBT grassroots organization and public policy development on HIV/AIDS issues, housing, healthcare, and research. Jody is recognized and respected as a national spokesperson on issues impacting the LGBT community and their loved ones. He travels the U.S. and the world to train and speak on the importance of the family and ally voices in advancing acceptance and equality. It is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Mr. Jody Huckaby.
Well, I would much rather follow Janet than the mayor, so thank you for that. I'm really excited to be here this morning in Pittsburgh. I see that some of the speakers here have some specific references to Pittsburgh. I don't. I don't have anything substantive. I gotta say, Janet is an amazing tour guide. As we were getting lost on our way to dinner last night, we got to see downtown in all of its great light and beauty, and she pointed out all kinds of historical things. So I learned a lot in the 12 hours, I guess, that I've been here. But this is a really important opportunity for me to speak today. As Janet said, I travel all over the country. We have chapters all over the country, and we've helped to launch similar organizations across the globe. But this is a particularly, what's the best word? I've been looking for the right word for it, and it's not like me to be speechless. But it's a poignant moment for me as the organization's leader, because our founder, Jean Manford, died a week ago. And Jean was 92 years old. And this is the first time that, other than speaking with the press, this is the first time that I have the opportunity to speak publicly about PFLAG now that she's passed. And in the work that I do, I frequently tell the story of PFLAG and its history, because that's what I do. And I probably told that story hundreds of times. And in the 8 years that I've been with PFLAG National as its director, I've had several opportunities to meet with Jean and with her daughter and her son-in-law and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Jean was a remarkable woman. And I thought, and I was talking with Jean's daughter over the weekend that I was coming out here to Pittsburgh, and I said, you know, Suzanne, it's going to be a bit challenging telling the story, so maybe we can get somebody else to do it. So, how many of you watch MSNBC to get some of your news? A few hands. How many of you heard of Rachel Maddow? A few of you? All right, very good. This is a crowd we're going to love. All right, so I would say my good friend Rachel Maddow, but that's what they say in Washington. She's not my good friend. She's an amazing person. And so, to our delight, Rachel Maddow did a segment on Jean Manford and on PFLAG. So I thought that would be a great context for this gathering today, remembering that Jean Manford was a school teacher. So, without further ado, Rachel.
Republican House Speaker John Boehner sometimes gets criticized for being a crier. I think he gets criticized for that because some people see crying as a sign of weakness. But honestly, if you are a crier, It is not a sign of weakness or a sign of strength or a sign of anything else. You are just a crier. It is just a thing about you. You're just wired that way. I think that I personally find John Boehner's frequent public crying to be actually endearing, because I too am a crier. The national anthem, for example. I cry every single time I hear the national anthem. I mean, unless you do a really atrociously bad job, I am going to cry when you sing the national anthem, even if you sing it poorly. Also, buskers in the subway. I don't care if you're doing aha remixes on a pedal stool, I will cry. Also, really good political speeches. Even if I cannot stand you as a politician, I would still cry at your good speech. I cried a lot at the George W. Bush second inaugural address, and I could not stand that guy. If you are a crier, you're just a crier. God made you that way. Don't even get me started on those sad puppy commercials, right? Am I right? One of the ones that I am particularly bad about has to do with the fact that I'm an openly gay person. I have been out since I was a teenager, and that means I have done my share of time at gay pride parades, which happen every year all over the country in May and June. And even though I have been to roughly a gazillion of these things, and even though in some ways they are all the same, and I have seen them all before, I'm here, I'm queer, I'm used to it, honestly, the mere idea that I might see something like this again at a gay pride parade, one particular thing about gay pride parades makes me weep like the Dickens every time I so much as even think about it. These are the parents of gay people marching in gay pride parades, just to say that they love their kids, basically. Makes me cry every time. And my parents loved me. This isn't born out of any personal hardship or something. But seeing those straight parents out there on the street saying, yeah, I'm here in this parade publicly because I love my kid and I am not ashamed, kills me every time. Anyway, the reason this exists, the reason this phenomenon exists in America, the reason there are all these totally normal, average moms and dads out there with this dignified, remarkable, tears-inducing public proclamation of love for their kids is because of this specific incident, this moment in time. This is the first time it ever happened. This is 1972. The woman at the front there, in the sort of center of your screen on the left side, that's Jean Manford. Her son Morty was gay, and she made that sign herself. You can read the sign. It says, "Parents of gays, unite in support for our children." And she held that sign and marched with her son in this parade in 1972. She did not belong to any group. She was not there with anybody other than her kid. But she did not like the way that her gay son had been treated in public, and she was not ashamed of him. And so she decided to make that sign and appeal to other parents who she knew were out there. And she just marched alongside him in that parade in Greenwich Village in 1972. Now, Jean Manford, when she did that, she later said that she thought that the screaming and cheering that she was hearing from the crowd as she proceeded down the parade route, she thought those screams and cheers were for the famous Dr. Benjamin Spock, who was marching just behind her in the parade. But as the parade progressed and all the screaming, cheering people started to crowd around her, she realized the screaming and the cheering was for her. As we marched the parade route, she said, so many people came up and hugged me and cried and talked about their own parents. After that parade, Jean Manford said her phone rang and rang. She got calls from gay people who wanted her to talk to their parents. She got phone calls from other parents of gay kids who just wanted themselves to talk with her. And in 1973, she convened the first meeting of the group that would later become known as PFLAG, Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. Jean Manford marched alone in 1972. She formed the group in 1973, and by 1978, Jean Manford found herself, unwittingly, the leader of a movement.
The most important thing is communication, love in a family, understanding and respect. And so many, of course, when the parents come, they are full of guilt, they're ashamed, they don't want to tell the neighbors. And we try to relax them. We can understand their initial trauma, the surprise, and but we try to let them know that homosexuality is just another shade of sexuality. It is no better, no worse than anything else. Our children are as good as anybody's, and we love our children, and they love us. All parents love their children. And there is certainly the most important thing in our lives is to see that our children are happy. And I don't care if anybody knows what people know personally, because my son is more important to me than the gossip that might go around the neighborhood or among people. And people, my friends, I have many, respect me, and understand, and they feel as I do. They respect my son, and they, in fact, when they see things that are not right, they will write to protest, because they realize that I have helped educate them, and they are educating other people.
That was Jane Manford speaking on the Today Show in 1978. The organization that she founded in the 70s is a national nonprofit today with 350 affiliates. It started as this one lady carrying a sign in public to support her one son, and it became a powerful grassroots thing. It became a big cultural advance in our country on this as a civil rights issue. An advance that's widely credited as a key development in this movement for those civil rights more broadly. Watch this.
Soon after the protest at Stonewall, 40 years ago, the phone rang in the home of a soft-spoken elementary school teacher named Jane Manford. It was 1 in the morning, and it was the police. Now, her son Morty had been at the Stonewall the night of the raids. Ever since, he had felt within him a new sense of purpose. So when the officer told Jean that her son had been arrested, which was happening often to gay protesters, she was not entirely caught off guard. And then the officer added one more thing. And you know, he's homosexual. Well, that police officer sure was surprised when Jean responded, "Yes, I know. Why are you bothering him?" And not long after, Jean would be marching side by side with her son through the streets of New York. She carried a sign that stated her support. People cheered. Young men and women ran up to her, kissed her, and asked her to talk to their parents. And this gave Jean and Morty an idea. And so after that march, on the anniversary of the Stonewall protests, amidst the violence and the vitriol of a difficult time for our nation, Jean and her husband Jules, two parents who loved their son deeply, formed a group to support other parents, and in turn to support their children as well. In the first meeting Jean held in 1973, about 20 people showed up. But slowly, interest grew. Morty's life, tragically, was cut short by AIDS, but the cause endured. And today, the organization they founded for parents, families, and friends of lesbians and gays has more than 200,000 members and supporters. It's made a difference for countless families across America. And Jean would later say, "I considered myself such a traditional person. I didn't even cross the street against the light. But I wasn't going to let anybody walk over Morty." That's the story of America, of ordinary citizens organizing, agitating, and advocating for change. Of hope stronger than hate. Of love more powerful than any insult or injury. Of Americans fighting to build for themselves and their families a nation in which no one is a second-class citizen, in which no one is denied their basic rights, in which all of us are free to live and love as we see fit.
That was President Obama speaking at the Human Rights Campaign dinner in 2009. This week, Jean Manford, the founder of Parents, Families, and Friends of Love, here I go, Friends of Lesbians and Gays, passed away. She was 92 years old, and everybody cried, including me on TV, like usual. All right, that does it for us tonight. We'll see you again on Monday, but now you get to spend Friday night with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Have a great weekend.
So, what else is there to say? It is an honor, and Betty, congratulations. I didn't realize that our organizations are celebrating 40 years together as an anniversary. Jean and I had talked about the evolution of the organization of PFLAG and what her vision was as the first parent, the first straight ally, if you will, to step up and to speak out publicly in support of her gay child. And the last conversation that I had with her, it was about marriage and where the issues of marriage were in this country. And it was, obviously we had a lot of successes around marriage equality this year, and we talked about that issue. And she said to me, "Jody, you know, when I decided to stand up for Morty, and when I tried to intervene and no one would talk to me at the newspapers, and when I marched in that parade, and I realized how much hurt there is I realized how much pain there is. I realized that I had to do something, but I had no idea what would happen in this country and across the globe. The role of PFLAG in all of the organizations that are working brilliantly and collaboratively, especially in this community, to advance LGBT issues, understanding, societal acceptance, and to end bullying and harassment in the schools, the role of PFLAG is critically important. And it's a real thrill to be with the Trevor Project, with GLSEN, and with other organizations here, because that partnership is very important. If we learn anything from the life of Jean Manford, is that it is the power of one, and that seems to be a theme that's running through the presentations this morning. All of you, if you are teachers, if you're educators, you are school counselors, if you are in any way obviously a part of the system as individuals who are concerned about the education of our young people, including LGBT and questioning youth, all of you have the power to make a difference. And the work of PFLAG as a national grassroots organization, now with 368 chapters in the country, we are as unique as the communities in which we live and serve. And so I was invited by Janet and by Liz De Jesus, the chapter president, to be here today to talk about the role that PFLAG plays. And it is really inspiring to me that this community of Pittsburgh has a GLSEN chapter, because it's important that when we work with our chapters across the country, the mantra that we always use is that the work of your chapter really needs to be focused on what the needs are of your community. So, Betty, it's really good to hear that you're gathering data as part of this 2-year plan, because it's important to find out what the real needs are, to be able to address them and make certain that everybody in the community understands what it is that, what the issues are and how it is that we're going to move forward. What organizations are we going to engage to move forward to solve the problems of bullying and harassment in the schools. And so I will encourage you all to reach out to our PFLAG chapter here in Pittsburgh, and we have, our chapter leadership is working with some of the surrounding chapters in the area. We have over 16 chapters and representatives across the state of Pennsylvania. And the chapter really is here to help the parents and the families and the educators unravel the very complex issues of LGBT acceptance and affirmation. I appreciate, Wes, that you shared the vision statement for the Trevor Project. I liken the vision of PFLAG to that of a marathon and not of a sprint. Because obviously, it's Janet, your story, I'm glad you took the time to share it this morning, is really important. Because long before there were the kinds of concerns that we're seeing today, the acknowledgments that bullying and harassment exist in our schools, especially for LGBT and questioning youth, long before that, there were parents and family members who were dealing with the fact that they had a gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or questioning child, or family member or loved one. And long after the campaigns that we're seeing around foster care and around adoption, around marriage, all of these issues that you're going to read about, you're going to hear about. These are challenging and complex issues. And one of the things that Jean liked to talk about as someone who was raised in the Jewish tradition, and I was sharing a bit last night, being raised in a very Catholic tradition, is that religion and faith are not necessarily, and they should not be considered mutually exclusive as it relates to LGBT understanding. And you as educators, as teachers, I would encourage you over the next few years as you work through these issues in the city and across the school systems to take a look at what biases exist for you. It's really important in order for us to understand difference. It's important that we also understand what kind of biases or influences we had growing up. I know that I was born and raised in Cajun, Southwest Louisiana. It meant that we drank a lot. It meant that we ate a lot of good spicy food. We danced an awful lot, and hopefully without people taking photographs, because that's what Cajuns do, and we cooked pretty well. But religion was very important to my very Catholic family. I'm the 7th of 8 children. I have a brother who's a Catholic priest, and I have a sister who's a Catholic nun. And I happen to be one of 3 out gay siblings in my family. And my father passed away 3 years ago, and my mother's been very, very ill. We had a lot of conversations about legacy. Obviously, as those of us growing older and caring for older parents, talk about legacy. And I remember a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to talk about the intersection of religion and LGBT affirmation and acceptance in my own family on the Oprah Winfrey Show. And my father was too sick to participate in the show, but when you go on the Oprah show, you get the swag bag, right? So you get all this good stuff. So you get the Oprah Winfrey cup, and you get the Oprah Winfrey blanket. She gives out well, she used to give out blankets and comforters, and then baseball caps. Now, my dad was a military guy. He almost always wore military hats or baseball caps, big baseball fan. In his last year of life, he was living in a veteran's home because he was too sick to be cared for at home. And almost every day he wore his Oprah Winfrey hat. And down in Southwest Louisiana, people know Oprah. And without fail, every day there would be at least somebody on the staff who would ask him, so what's the Oprah Winfrey hat about? And my dad would be sitting there in his wheelchair with his rosary and his Oprah Winfrey hat, and he would proudly say, I have 3 kids who are out and gay, and they got to be on Oprah's sofa. So, isn't that special? I'm reminded of my dad because of Jean Manfred's recent passing and my mother's illness now. And I just want to encourage you that you think about what it is that you can do in your role in the schools, in the community here in Pittsburgh. Reach out to PFLAG, reach out to GLSEN, reach out to the Trevor Project, reach out to the Persad Center, all the great organizations that are here to support you, to be a resource for you. Without a doubt, the lesson that we can learn moving forward is that we have the power to make a difference if we're willing to step into it, see what the resources are, and take a hold of our lives. Thank you.
I like the approach that, that this community is taking. First of all, gathering data. So doing a survey, finding out what the real concerns are before trying to develop solutions to address those concerns. So it's very good to see. We'll be hearing from researchers to talk about the substantive research. We've been talking about some of the trends we're seeing across the country, but when you're dealing with bullying and harassment, these issues are very local issues, and it's wonderful that the city of Pittsburgh and the community is gathered together to bring information together, do the serious research that's necessary, and then develop programs and solutions to the problems that exist. Congratulations to the Persad Center, to all of the organizations and the elected officials who are engaged in bringing this issue to the forefront, identifying the talent, and the resources to help do something about bullying and harassment in schools.